little shadow boxing going on. Ah. North Avenue, entrance to the Beltline. How is somebody supposed to be able to use this entrance with it all blocked up? That sidewalk up here. Excuse me, you're in my way. This sidewalk is handicapped access. North Avenue entrance, Beltline. None of these scooters belong on this sidewalk. None.
Children and vaccines over the last century.
Yet more and more parents are opting out of getting their kindergarten-age students vaccinated, according to new data from the CDC. In Georgia, data shows nearly 5% of kindergarten students had exemptions during the 2021-2022 school year, the highest percentage in the Southeast.
It seems that there's a downtake over the last 2 years in the percentage of children who are being vaccinated against common illnesses such as chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella.
Dr. Cecil Bennett of Noonan Family Medical Associates called it a byproduct of misinformation about vaccines that spread during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The concern, of course, is whether or not enough children don't get vaccinated where we begin another, for lack of a better term, pandemic.
He says while the numbers are concerning, they aren't significant enough for parents of vaccinated children to panic.
Fortunately, the vast majority of children, greater than 90%, are vaccinated, so we're still in a position of herd immunity.
He tells Fox 5 he hopes more parents with questions about vaccines will look at the data and facts that support the use of them.
So there are vaccinations that, have zero risk of the child actually getting that disease process because the live virus is not being used. The polio vaccine is an inactivated vaccine, so your child cannot get polio from getting the polio vaccine.
He's also encouraging other doctors to have those conversations with the parents of their patients. In Atlanta, Joy Dukes, Fox 5 News.
President, any senator, any public health official state publicly that they've taken 7 shots. So, I think if people really are supporting this program, we should understand who really has taken 7 shots and who has quietly fallen away from taking them because of safety concerns.
And just really quickly, I want your advice on how do we tell the difference between a therapeutic and a sterilizing vaccine, because it seems these have been recommended or even mandated. That's normally reserved for sterilizing. So what is that fundamental difference?
Sterilizing vaccines mean that once somebody has the vaccine on board, that it basically sterilizes or neutralizes the pathogen. And so, one can't get it and one can't give it to someone else. Our CDC told us early in 2021 that vaccines were not sterilizing. In fact, fully vaccinated people were giving the virus to fully vaccinated people. So that left, the only issue of whether or not it has any therapeutic benefits. Do they reduce the risk of hospitalization and death? And the answer is no. And the consent form, FAQ, doesn't make that claim. So the official government documents that patients see do not make the claim that the vaccines reduce hospitalization and death, yet public health agencies and others out there are pushing a false narrative that the vaccines make the illness less severe when indeed it doesn't.
Wow, Dr. Peter McCullough, thank you so much for your time.
It's just plain old necessary. But despite being one of the main contributors to carbon emissions and pollution, well, the Chinese Communist Party is trying to play the climate game both ways. They're pushing the U.S. to regulate itself, while on their end, advancing policies that do the exact opposite. Here to speak with us about it is Steve Milloy. He's a senior EE Institute legal fellow and environmental attorney and founder of junkscience.com. Hey, Steve Milloy, thanks for being on Crossroads.
Great to be here, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Well, first off, Biden right now is pushing to, really to stop burning U.S. coal. The Chinese Communist Party, meanwhile, they're increasing their programs. I guess just for the average person watching this unfold, why does it matter if the U.S. is burning less coal, China is burning more. Why does this matter?
Well, it's a matter of economics and national security. You know, the more energy a country burns, the typically better the economy is, the more efficiently you can do it, the richer people are. And we're in a situation now where China is burning all the coal, all the oil, gas, all the fossil fuels it can, because its goal is to be the lone global superpower by 2049. In contrast, in the United States, we have this silly green agenda where we are going to unilaterally, try to control the climate through how much fossil fuel we use, which is ridiculous because the United States is now only about 10% of global emissions. And even if you believe in the myth that emissions drive climate, the United States could stop burning fossil fuels today and forever, and more than 90% of global emissions are going to happen. So we're not accomplishing anything by, hurting our own energy production, hurting our economy, reducing our standard of living. We're also making ourselves even more dependent on China with Joe Biden's Green New Deal agenda. You know, all the wind and solar and EVs, all this stuff depends on China. And we're just making ourselves more dependent and plays right into China's hands.
Well, one thing that really shocked me was when I was researching coal energy, I was reading that American coal energy is some of the cleanest energy on the planet. I think the emissions with some of the plants we have, it's just water basically. But I know that it's not the same everywhere. I know that the Chinese coal plants are very dirty. What's the difference between U.S. coal power and Chinese coal power?
Well, the difference is we use scrubbers on our coal plants, and the scrubbers take out various forms of pollution, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxides, particulate matter. We scrub all these out, and at a cost. Okay, I mean, it costs money, it costs energy to run those scrubbers. China is so desperate for energy and so poor, they can't afford to run these scrubbers. They don't have the regulatory apparatus to enforce the running of scrubbers. So, they just have all this extra pollution pouring out of their stacks. Not so much carbon dioxide, although they could probably improve their efficiency, but it's more conventional pollutants coming out of Chinese smokestacks. But it's in terms of climate and carbon dioxide emissions, we're the same as they are.
I mean, now what does it mean if the U.S. Let's imagine we do it. We go forward this whole net zero agenda. America gets rid of coal energy. We're just using wind turbines and we're using solar panels. We've achieved the Green New Deal. It happens, right? China takes over the market on essentially carbon fuels and so on. What does it mean for us? What does it mean for the world?
Well, we're just going to have a much lower standard of living, and we're going to be much less secure because, the more wind and solar we have, the more expensive energy is, the less reliable it is, and the more we depend on China. And of course, none of that is good when China is your main global. It's not even a competitor. I mean, they're really our global enemy. When your opponent says he wants to be the lone global superpower by 2049, that is not a friendly gesture. Okay, so they want to be in charge, and we're hurting ourselves. We have tremendous coal resources. We have tremendous natural gas resources, tremendous oil resources. We should be using those to make ourselves stronger. Instead, the current administration is making us weaker by imposing wind and solar, these more expensive, less reliable forms of energy on us. And we're also throwing away all the economic growth we could have with coal, oil, and gas.
In other news, parents are being pushed out of the discussion where their kids are being taught about gender transitions and even not being told if it's happening. More on this after the break.
Thank you for having me.
So, just first of all, what's going on in these schools in Monmouth County, New Jersey? What are they actually teaching the kids that has parents concerned?
It's mainly the fact that the state is trying to intervene by having teachers withhold information from parents in regards to whether or not a child wishes to transition, having parents not be aware of a second file on their child, and whether whether or not a child wants to use a different bathroom and play sports. So all of this is being told that it's okay to not have your parent know what's going on with you.
Well, I've heard of this happening in other parts of the country, and it's bizarre because anyone who understands what grooming is, part of the process of grooming a child would be that they would fill their heads with certain narratives and then try to distance themselves from the guardians who would protect them from, said practices. I guess the big question is then, what are parents doing about it? And what are some of the challenges? What are some of the pushback you're getting while you're trying to stop this?
It's a huge challenge. The state and the Attorney General are trying to block an amended policy that the Board of Ed is looking to enforce. The Board of Education wants to have parents involved in their children's lives because parental involvement is extremely paramount in a child's life, especially a minor's life. These activists are coming to Board of Ed meetings, overwhelming and overpowering these meetings and chanting, transgender lives matter, protect trans kids. So it's a big pushback from them because they feel that these transgender children need special attention at home, and they're not getting it at home. So they wanted to keep it a secret from them.
It's very bizarre. So I've actually heard from parents, talking to people across the country about what happens in some of these Board of Education meetings, and I've actually been told a lot of times they bus in protesters. A lot of times they're not even parents, and I'm curious if that's what you're seeing as well where you're at.
I definitely saw that. I witnessed it firsthand. I was at the first Board of Ed meeting that they had where at least hundreds of these activists were present and advocating for them. It was horrific. They did not live in the area. They were voicing their opinion, and they overpowered that entire night with how loud they were and with their chants. Let us in because it was the room was at maximum capacity and they couldn't come in. So we heard them from the outside yelling and chanting. It was just a horrible night.
Wait, you said hundreds? Hundreds of them, Shomer, estimated.
There's like about 100.
Wow.
Yes.
Is that legal though? Because if I understand right, normally at these Board of Education meetings, it's the local parents, and there's of course time limits on who can speak. Are they there legally? Are they involved with the parents? Are there children there? Like, who are these people?
Some were even churches. Some were just speakers who went through the transition. They were just regular people bussed in from different areas, and they were speaking their mind on how they felt. Anybody can attend these meetings, but in my opinion, if you don't live in the area, then you shouldn't be attending a meeting where you're not a parent, where your child doesn't attend that district. Especially that a lot of these activists that attended the meeting were still under the age of 21, and they had no children. They were just speaking on their experiences and not allowing parents like myself to fully explain why it was imperative to have parental involvement in a minor's life.
Well, and this seems kind of bizarre. It's like local school board meetings. Normally with these, you'd have the parents from the local area speaking, voicing their concerns of what's happening in school, and they're bringing in activists by bus loads. You mentioned churches, maybe other groups, like what we assume are speakers who have a lot of experience doing these types of activist events. And meanwhile, parents are trying to make their case while being drowned out by these individuals.
Yeah.
What impact has this had on the ability of parents to communicate with the school boards then?
I mean, we're still able to communicate with the board. I have an amazing school board who's extremely supportive and will fight for our back. They are just an amazing group of people who support the parents and who will fight for what's right.
Now, I know you mentioned that these activists, they're saying that, the kids, they may not feel safe at home. They don't, maybe they want the parents out of the picture. And so if they go to the schools, the parents are doing, of course the kids are making this choice. For the parents, though, I guess what would you say? Why is it that parents need to be informed of these things? What is the concern among parents then?
That they're still minors. These children really don't know what they want. These children are still trying to figure out who they are and trying to fit in with certain groups of friends. And if a certain group of friends is if they're transitioning into the opposite gender, then my child will go with that other group. It's so important to have such parent involvement to make sure that all these children are guided the correct way and are protected, because parental involvement is so important in a minor's life. I want to be there to protect my children, to guide my children in every aspect of their life. And I want to be involved. And if it means for me to support my child while they're transitioning at a young age, I want to be there for them. I want to help them. I want to guide.
Be leveraged to support policies with which they may fundamentally disagree. ESG was causing higher fees. It was giving less profit back in return. It was a way of using a monopoly on cash in order to manipulate the markets, and it's your cash. And given that the government itself was pouring money into some of these ESG firms, including by handing them your pension funds, its agenda was being propped up by the hands of the state. Public-private partnership, they might call it. Now, where things head from here is still being determined. The cultural shift now taking place in America, the anti-woke boycotts, the songs against high taxation and woke agendas, it reflects a deeper sentiment now growing in the country. Culture reflects the character of a nation.
I wish politicians look out for minors, not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down.
Now, pay attention to the significance of that. What people want shapes what they buy. It's also how they vote, in fact. And politicians tend to follow the current of public demand for that reason. And we can already see politics coming into the picture. Republicans have been holding hearings. They're investigating whether ESG may even violate the law. The House and Senate notably have pushed bills against ESG, although the bills would technically need to get past Biden, and it probably won't happen just yet, at least. But on the local level, there's already talk of lawsuits against woke companies for antitrust violations. Shareholders are talking about it as well, given notably that it's illegal for businesses to coordinate with each other like this. And it's at the state level as well. In Florida, for example, Governor Ron DeSantis, of course, a 2024 presidential candidate, he has signed a law to block ESG standards in government investments. In other states like Utah, bills look to prevent investment firms from using what's now referred to as the weaponization of capital. And with BlackRock and other companies investment firms getting a lot of the money through government programs, this is a big threat to them. So, what does this all mean? Well, put simply, ESG is dying. It's dying not just in name, but in essence. And its death is part of a broader cultural shift now sweeping the United States and the world. If you want to know where things are heading, look to the changes in culture. The markets will carry the ripple effects of public demand. And the times, well, they're changing. Now, folks, in other news, China is using climate change as a political tool, and America may be selling itself out. More on this after the break.
Oh, somebody had changed the caption. I told you I knew where this was. It used to say got my ass arrested, but Mega didn't get arrested, so stick it where the sun don't shine.
Loved ones suspect foul play and are asking for the public's help tonight. Here's Fox 5's Deidre Dukes.
Abhishek Kumar works at this gas station in Jonesboro. His family lives in India. They are desperate to find him after receiving a disturbing call. Abhishek Kumar's family and friends fear something sinister happened inside his Jonesboro apartment August 24th, the last time anyone reportedly saw him alive.
His family and friends, they believe he's dead.
The 23-year-old has been missing for nearly a week. His roommates have also vanished, and loved ones suspect they had something to do with Kumar's disappearance.
They disappeared, all 8 individuals.
Kumar is in the U.S. on a work visa. Family members say he moved to Clayton County earlier this year and is employed at this gas station on Noah's Ark Road in Jonesboro. Rinka Mann is a family friend. He is helping Kumar's parents and siblings, who all live in India, in the search. They filed a missing persons report with Clayton County Police after receiving a disturbing call from someone saying Kumar had been harmed.
I spoke to his family in India. They're saying this Abhishek got badly hurt or got killed.
Mann says one of Kumar's roommates told him that Kumar and several men who also live at the apartment on Upper Riverdale Road got into a fight the afternoon of August 24th.
He heard fight. He was sleeping downstairs. He went there and tried to be in the middle, but they did not listen and they told him, don't be smart and just get out.
Police say they have conducted multiple interviews. They're asking anyone with information to contact Clayton County Police. In Jonesboro, Deidre Dukes, Fox 5 News.
Deidre, thanks. We have an update tonight on that police canine who was shot during an exchange of gunfire in Coweta County last Friday. Canine Kilo is expected to make a full recovery and at some point even be back on duty. How about that? Our size Doug Evans has more on the story.
I'm here at the Coweta County Sheriff's Office East Precinct. This is home to their canine unit. I've learned a lot about Canine Kilo, his contributions to this community, as well as his actions last Friday, when he's credited with taking on an armed suspect and saving officers' lives. That's Kilo coming out of the Sheriff's Office helicopter last April during man tracker training. We're told he's a 6-year-old Belgian Malinois, and he's trained in apprehension and narcotics detection. Last Friday, as officers faced off with an armed man after a high-speed chase and crash, it was Kilo who charged forward first to take on the suspect. Because of the investigation, they can't yet release the details, but their preliminary report credits Kilo with saving lives.
It's the consensus of everybody here that Kilo performing his job the way that he was trained to perform it bought officers a little time and without a doubt saved their life.
Kilo was shot, a through-and-through wound to his neck and shoulder that caused excessive bleeding.
Kilo was alert, but of course there was a lot of blood, and seeing that much blood, it made me nervous to, well, how much have we already lost?
The vet who treated Kilo would later say quick action to stabilize both wounds by his handler and other deputies saved his life. Just last May, the Coweta County Sheriff's canine teams, as well as those from neighboring Fayette County Sheriff's Office, took a class in canine first aid, including life-saving response to trauma. Kilo continues to receive care at Sweetwater Veterinary Hospital in Coweta County. 2 days before the shooting, Kilo was credited with tracking a burglary suspect who Coweta County deputies suspect was involved in the break-in of multiple businesses here.
And then 2 days later, he's out there. He's right on the front lines with all those guys, and he's the first one out of the car, and he's the first one, getting involved. And I think that reaction helped save those guys' lives.
His handler took this video of his partner on Monday. Kilo was limping, but playful. They say if his recovery continues to go this well, they expect Kilo back on duty soon. In Coweta County, Doug Evans, Fox 5 News.
Dead after a gunman opened fire on campus. The university issued an all clear this afternoon, hours after police responded to an armed and dangerous person on campus. The all clear came after police sent an alert to students and employees telling them to shelter in place. Officials say the shooting happened inside a science building. A person of interest is now in custody. A federal hate crime investigation is underway in Jacksonville, Florida.
It comes after a white gunman with a swastika emblazoned assault rifle killed 3 people at a Dollar General. Police say 21-year-old Ryan Palmer left behind racist ramblings in his diary detailing his hatred for black people. He killed 19-year-old Anult Joseph Legare, 29-year-old Gerald Deshaun Gallion, and 52-year-old Angela Carr before killing himself.
They were just black going shopping. All of us could be the next victim.
The suspect purchased both weapons legally. He had no prior criminal record and is not from Jacksonville, Florida. Today, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced new funding to improve security at Edwards Waters University, the historically black college near the site of that deadly rampage.
Gwinnett County police officers are crediting technology with helping them track down a 97-year-old man who was reported missing by his loved ones. The cameras that helped lead officers right to the man who said he got lost while driving. David.
Christine, that rain and thunderstorms of earlier, they're on the move. Also on the move is tropical storm Idalia, and it's down in the Gulf, and it's gaining strength. We'll have the latest next.
And Mayor Andre Dickens says he will repay Atlanta taxpayers after an audit revealed the event he hosted violated city finance guidelines. How much the event, including hotel stays and room service, cost you?
Oh, Lord. Do you think Bidenomics deserves a sequel? I hope you don't. I think the rest of the country hopes you don't.